You're being terminated for fraud. That's how my Monday kicked off, me sitting in pajama bottoms with a blazer thrown on, getting fired over Zoom in front of 79 employees, and somebody's noisy Labrador barking in the background. Kayla Benton, freshly promoted last month, drowning in perfume and riding high on pure nepotism courtesy of her COO uncle, grinned like she'd just won a reality show trophy. We've identified unauthorized travel reimbursements totaling $1,240, she announced as if she'd uncovered a Wall Street scandal. She leaned closer to her webcam, her smile smug enough to curdle milk. Effective immediately, you're terminated for expense fraud. I didn't cry. Didn't shout, didn't even raise an eyebrow. I simply unmuted, stared straight into my Logitech camera, and said, "You'll want to double check those receipts before 8 a.m. Then I left the call. Now, before we jump headfirst into the glorious implosion of Kayla's career, do me a solid. 95% of people who watch stories like this don't hit subscribe. It helps us keep digging up these delicious corporate collapses. So tap that button. Thanks. Now, back to the disaster. Let me rewind. I'm Sarah Malik, age 34, and I used to work in regulatory compliance for a manufacturing firm with more federal oversight than a nuclear lab run by toddlers. No corner office, no stock perks, no cheesy LinkedIn posts about innovation. I was the woman in steel, toe boots and a hard hat, walking through facilities across the Pacific Northwest, making sure we weren't shipping volatile tanks sealed with duct tape. Every month, I flew out to one or two plants tucked in small towns where diners greet you by name, and the airport looks like a shed with a landing strip. My job was simple but sacred. Perform federally mandated inspections, file reports in the compliance system, and make sure we didn't get slapped with fines big enough to rattle the COO veneers. Every visit needed a signed checklist from a federal liaison. Every expense logged down to the cent. Hotel bills around $139.88, meal receipts timestamped, rides documented and geotagged, everything aligned with the official forms. You could run a forensic audit through my spreadsheets and still not find a misplaced comma. But Kayla didn't see diligence. She saw a $1,240 reimbursement filed the same week she strutted into her new HR director title. A title handcrafted by her uncle, who thought compliance was just a word you sprinkle in investor meetings. Kayla wanted to crack down on waste. First, it was someone who ordered too many sticky notes. Then she targeted 2 IT guys who dared expense lunch during a server outage. And then she set her sights on me. That week, I'd just returned from a plant visit in Oregon. Not Bali, not Miami, Oregon. I examined a welding site with 2 previous citations for unsecured canisters, and this time we actually passed. The federal inspector even thanked me for catching a mislabeled shipment. 3 days later, a full company Zoom firing. No warning, no private message, just Kayla sharing her screen like she'd cracked the Zodiac cipher. But the receipt, she flaunted that $1,240 expense wasn't merely a receipt. It was a signed federal document, stamped by a Bureau of Industrial Standards representative. That travel she flagged, mandatory, required, non-negotiable, and the best part, if that inspection vanished, our entire shipping network would be marked non-compliant. Kayla had no idea she'd just pulled the linchpin from a biannual audit chain. I didn't bother arguing. I logged off, opened my inbox, and sent a single email. Subject, receipt documentation attached, scanned inspection paperwork, government liaison signature, inspection time, routing confirmation. Straight into the federal database. I see, Seed HR, legal, and just for entertainment, Kayla. Then I poured myself a coffee, opened a new tab, and reviewed the onboarding packet from a competitor that had been courting me for weeks. The sun hadn't even risen on the chaos yet, but in less than 12 hours it would. That inspection I completed in Oregon. It was the keystone in a major compliance cycle. Remove it, and the entire structure collapses. And Kayla had just removed it. You could tell she rehearsed that smug speech in her bathroom mirror, maybe in front of one of those girl boss vibes decals in glittery cursive. Her voice oozed fake sweetness as she kicked off the company. Wide zoom. 79 tiles lit up with sleepy coworkers, munching granola bars, and sipping burnt office coffee, expecting just another Thursday check-in. Then she said it, "Before we begin, I need to address a serious breach of company ethics." The call went dead silent. Nothing hooks an audience like a disaster that isn't theirs. Kayla hit screen share. Kayla put on drama the way reality TV villains put on false lashes. A blown-up reimbursement form filled the shared screen, my name at the top, and a neatly printed total at the bottom, $146.37. This expense was submitted last week, she announced, practically vibrating with self-importance. Flights, meals, lodging, all supposedly tied to a mandatory inspection trip in Oregon. She stretched the word supposedly, like she thought I forged a field visit just to snag a free hotel breakfast and a rental car that smelled like damp carpet and regret. Kayla kept going, riding her own adrenaline. After careful review, HR found no authorized travel request for this trip. No HR approval, no COO signature, no itinerary logged with our travel vendor. Therefore, she paused, soaking in the spotlight like she was performing on Broadway. Effective immediately, Sarah Malik is terminated for filing fraudulent expenses. Silence dropped over the call. The kind where someone's toddler can knock over a bowl of cereal and the whole company hears it. I felt the blood draining from my face, but my voice didn't waver. I unmuted, leaned just close enough for her to see the steel in my eyes, and said, "You'll want to double. Check those receipts before 8 a.m. Click." Logged out. That kind of silence after a logout isn't technical, it's existential. I imagine Kayla just sat there, blinking like a cat realizing the furniture's been rearranged. I pushed back from my kitchen table, heart jackhammering, while I paced the floor with the kinetic energy of someone who's just lit a fuse and is waiting for the boom. Because here's the truth about Kayla. She thought HR ran the universe. She thought a shiny promotion and a well-placed family connection meant she could bulldoze anything in her path. She thought expenses were about money. She didn't know they were about federal law. That Oregon trip. It was one of 6 mandatory biannual audits for our remote manufacturing sites. Miss one and the government doesn't shrug, they shut you down. The receipt she waved around wasn't just a receipt. It was a federally signed site inspection document, time-stamped and already scanned into the Bureau of Industrial Standards Oversight, Q, pending HR travel verification. Kayla never bothered to look, never asked, never checked metadata, never noticed she had just fired the only federally credentialed auditor the company had, in the middle of an active inspection cycle. By noon, our plants would be flagged. By end of day, customer shipments would be frozen, and at 8:00 a.m., the Federal Oversight Bureau would look for the Oregon audit. And they wouldn't find it, because the internal workflow wouldn't let me upload anything until HR approved my travel. Kayla hadn't caught a fraud. She had blocked a federal inspection from being filed, and by 8 a.m., that mistake was going to smack her career so hard it would leave an echo. So I made tea, opened the employment contract I'd signed with our competitor the night before, and waited. Tick-tock. At 6:42 p.m., while Kayla was probably sipping cheap Prosecco with her feet on a desk she didn't earn, I uploaded a bombshell, a 3-page scanned inspection receipt stamped by the Bureau of Industrial Standards, header, mandatory field site, review biannual audit region, for signature, Marcus A. Kincaid, Federal Liaison for Industrial Oversight. Timestamp 11:08 a.m. Pacific, the exact morning she roasted me on Zoom. Subject: termination/expense inquiry body. Attached is the federally signed inspection record for Plant 4C, Redwood County, Oregon. Part of our ongoing compliance agreement under our federal operations charter, routing confirmation shows successful upload to the BS audit system. This inspection was required. Regards, Sarah M. CC Legal HR, the coup, and Kayla herself. There's a special kind of calm that settles over you when you know the entire house of cards is about to collapse, and you're the one outside with a lawn chair and snacks. That was me. No anger, no fantasies, just the steady heartbeat of a woman waiting for the hurricane she predicted. I skimmed the receipt again, savoring everything Kayla ignored. Page 1, Site Details, Badge ID, Ventilation Notes, Page 2. Federal Travel Authorization routed under Emergency Clearance, Page 3. Confirmation Code, Upload Trail into the federal portal, 4 minutes after completion. Kayla probably thought the header looked like something whipped up in Word. She never verified the source, never checked the credential registry, never realized these inspections were the legal backbone of every shipment leaving the region. And now the backbone was snapped. In the federal database, there's a field only credentialed officers can see. Attestation status. Green equals shipments can move. Red equals everything stops. Guess what Plant 4C's status still was? Pending. Waiting for the file I hadn't been allowed to submit. Kayla didn't cut fat. She severed the artery keeping our logistics alive. I closed my laptop, stretched, and let the countdown start. The storm always begins with legal. Some junior paralegal squinting at inconsistencies. Then frantic ops emails when manifests bounce. Then, right on schedule, the government noticing the missing inspection. And Kayla's empire, built on perfume, ego, and her uncle's last name, would collapse under the weight of a receipt she never read. At 8:45 a.m., the first domino tipped. Urgent, compliance record incomplete, flagged for non-submission Plant 4C, Redwood County or Auditor of Record, Sarah Malik status, non-compliant. All shipments halted. 3 minutes later, operations was on the phone wondering why outbound freight was getting denial codes. By 9:00 a.m., the block spread. 3 other site audits I'd completed, all pending upload because HR hadn't cleared travel, were now red, flagged too. By 9:10 it was a wildfire. Forklifts halted mid-load, dispatch queues froze, client calls poured in. Slack lit up in every direction, and in HR, Kayla looked like printer paper dipped in panic. Legal had emailed her one line, "Did you terminate Sarah yesterday? At what time?" She didn't answer. She tried instead to secretly delete the Zoom recording from the cloud. But after that finance fiasco last quarter, IT Auto forwarded all recordings to legal. Delete attempt, denied. Try again, denied. A junior sysadmin saw the access log and pinged Slack. Why is Kayla trying to erase the all? Hands meeting. By 9:15, people were whispering in private channels. The clip of me saying verify those receipts before 8 a.m. was circulating like contraband. By 9:30, the COO assistant sprinted down the hallway holding printed documents, the corporate equivalent of last rites. By 9:45, the clown car had fully rolled into traffic. Doug from Ops was assigned to handle compliance uploads. Bless him. He'd never done an inspection. Thought OSHA and the USDA did the same job, and most importantly, he wasn't federally credentialed. He tried uploading a file using old SharePoint notes. The portal spit back. Access denied. Auditor not registered. Doug went pale, legal went quiet, ops went frantic, and then the truth finally dawned: I wasn't just authorized. I built the very system they were scrambling to fix. Kayla, meanwhile, wilted like a houseplant left on the dashboard of a hot car. Legal replayed the Zoom recording. Her voice boomed. You are terminated for fraud. Then mine, quiet and controlled. You'll want to verify those receipts before 8 a.m. Legal opened the email I'd sent. Read the attached receipts. Read the audit confirmation. Flat voice. She wasn't submitting fraud. She was submitting a federally required inspection. And then IT stuck their head in. External systems are flagging us as non-compliant. Outbound clearance codes are dead. What does that mean? Doug asked. Marcy from legal didn't even blink. It means our cargo doesn't move until we fix this. Then she turned to Kayla. You fired a federal auditor during an active inspection period on video. Kayla opened her mouth, closed it. No excuses left. By 10:45, the compliance system was flashing red like a Vegas casino sign, dying in the rain. But the final nail, George, the crusty old compliance officer from Cincinnati with a flip phone, forwarded an archived email thread. Subject Credential Consolidation Region 4 Recommendations Timestamp 6:12 a.m. 6 months ago. My original message, as discussed, consolidating federal access to one credentialed auditor per region will reduce risk. But HR must never interrupt reimbursement approvals during active inspection windows. If these audits are ever skipped, federal compliance will flag us and all shipments will freeze. Exactly what was happening. Exactly what Kayla caused. Exactly what I warned them about. We can't retroactively submit inspections from anyone who isn't federally credentialed. Before we finalize this new protocol, I need written confirmation that everyone understands that. That was the line I had typed months ago, the one Sarah Malik had bolded. The line that practically screamed, if this fails, our entire shipping network will freeze. Like she already knew someone in this company would eventually need those words etched across their forehead. George's forwarded email sat at the top of the chain like a smoking gun. Thought you'd want this. We were warned. Legal read it, the CFO read it, and Kayla Benton, suddenly shrinking into her expensive blazer, tried to pretend she hadn't, until she remembered her name sat right there in the CC line. Clear as daylight, undeniable, she attempted to protest how no one can read every single cross-department message, but the room had already turned on her. Because this wasn't just evidence, it was time-stamped federally, relevant protocol, level proof that Sarah had told them in painstaking, legally precise detail exactly what would happen. And they ignored her, mocked her, then fired her for the very thing she had warned them about. The CFO looked like someone had spiked his green smoothie with bleach. Kayla folded her arms, as if posture alone could rewrite a year of email archives. Then the general counsel spoke, and his tone had the finality of a coroner giving a cause of death. She documented every risk. We dismissed it, and on top of that, we publicly terminated her. It hit the room like metal. Bitter, cold, impossible to swallow. They hadn't just pushed out their only defense. They'd erased the one person who knew how to keep the infrastructure from imploding. And now, the infrastructure wasn't just broken. It was rolling backward into a ditch full of lawsuits, federal notices, and angry clients. Someone whispered, "What if she sues?" Marcy, pale and hollow-eyed, replied, "You should be more concerned about her talking. Making a mistake is one thing. Being warned in writing and doing it anyway is something the feds don't forgive." The realization was suffocating. They hadn't exposed a fraud. They'd manufactured a crisis out of incompetence. And the woman they humiliated had signed receipts, federal credentials, legally logged inspections, a trail of warnings, and now, undeniable moral high ground, a shout suddenly echoed from the hallway. Sales just lost a major client. They said, "We're under review." No one moved. The dominoes were still toppling. Sarah wasn't just the warning they ignored. She was the reckoning arriving in real time. At 11:03 a.m., the company's largest client, one of those global giants whose logo ends up on freight containers and government supply trucks, called the CEO direct line. No assistant, no account manager, direct. The voice on the line wasn't angry. Worse, it was calm. "Why is your company listed as non-compliant in the federal system?" 10 words, delivered with surgical precision. the kind that only people who already know the answer tend to use. The CEO hung up without replying. He stormed into legal like a thunderstorm wearing a luxury watch. Legal, huddled over Sarah's emailed receipts, looked up like school kids caught vandalizing a wall. Marcy grabbed her phone and dialed the Federal Oversight Bureau, rattling off site codes and desperate questions. She didn't get far. Only the registered auditor can file. We know, she said, but she no longer works here. Then your credential is invalid. You must re-register a new auditor. Estimated processing time is 10 to 12 business days plus an onboarding review. But we're mid-cycle, I'm aware. The woman said, so was your auditor. Click. Kayla wasn't trying to defend herself anymore. She was trying to reverse time. She found Sarah's old number, called, straight to voicemail, again and again. She didn't know Sarah had already rerouted everything through her new firm's reception desk. Ms. Malik is unavailable. Please direct all compliance inquiries to her counsel. Kayla panicked, fired off a text, can we talk? It's urgent, I reviewed the inspection files. No read receipt. Just an unanswered bubble floating in the void. At 11:17 a.m., the CFO demanded, get me the termination email. Kayla hesitated. It's in the shared drive. He opened it. Read the timestamp, stopped cold. This was sent at 11:08 a.m. yesterday. Yes, she murmured. He stared like she'd sprouted horns. That was during her inspection, the one she timestamped this morning. Kayla blinked. She didn't notify HR. She didn't need to. He snapped. It was federally scheduled. It's synced to ops. He spun his screen around. There it was, unaltered. Sarah Malik Plant 4C, Oregon On-Site Audit 8:00 a.m. 11:30 a.m. Underneath, in glaring red, inspection not submitted, flagged Marcy whispered the truth like a funeral note. You fired her while she was physically on site during a federally logged audit. No one spoke. Kayla swallowed. Can't we upload something to fix it? No, Marcy said. You cannot fabricate a federal inspection. That's not a compliance issue. That is fraud. The word hit the glass walls and bounced, unforgiving, and this time correctly aimed. They weren't dealing with a mistake. They were trapped, locked inside a cage of their own ego and a permanent digital trail. No workaround. No PR cover. No intern to blame. The only person who could fix it wasn't answering because they hadn't just lost an employee. They'd declared war on her. By noon, panic exploded across Slack like depth charges. Then the killer rumor surfaced. The competitor, the aggressive outfit across town, had just passed their surprise federal inspection. Perfect score, and guess who conducted the audit? Sarah Malik, compliance specialist, Redbridge Solutions. Yes, she hadn't just moved on, she had upgraded. The competitor had already heard about the Zoom firing. Companies gossip fast when there's blood in the water. They didn't mock it, they called her, quiet, professional. Would you consider a consulting contract, discreet, full access, immediate credential transfer? She didn't even have to say yes. They sent the contract within the hour, 6-month retainer, full federal access, credential duplication, not replacement. Her name stamped onto their compliance architecture like it had always been there. By the time the feds arrived, Sarah was already logged into the portal for their plants. The inspector even said, "Wish more vendors were this prepared." And when that rumor reached procurement, that the competitor aced the audit Sarah was scheduled to do for them, the writing was carved into stone, because both companies were up for the same multi-million-dollar government contract. Guess who now had a flawless compliance record? Guess who had 3 frozen plants, federal flags, and a CFO twitching like he needed medical leave? The update from the Department of Defense sealed their fate. The contract was slipping to the competitor. Because of one Zoom call, Kayla's signature wasn't on the paperwork anymore, but her decisions were everywhere. Marketing found an old photo online. A retreat group picture of Sarah wearing her badge. Compliance officer trusted authority. They placed it beside a screenshot of the Federal Registry showing the same name now under Redbridge Solutions. Caption, she didn't quit. She leveled up. And just like that, Sarah wasn't a ghost in their system. She was the architect of their collapse. The bridge she crossed, she torched it. The next morning at 9:00 a.m., the main office line rang. Not HR, not legal, front desk. A terrified intern transferred the call immediately, said they're federal and won't hold. Marcy put it on speaker. This is Auditor Helen Cross, U.S. Department of Regulatory Compliance. We're reviewing your flagged inspection cycle for Region 4. Everyone froze. We are missing documentation from Plant 4C and the surrounding facilities, all scheduled under your former auditor, Sarah Malik. She was removed from the registry at 11:08 a.m. on the 12th. Can't someone explain why? Silence. Helen didn't wait. Your only credentialed auditor was terminated during an active inspection window. Before escalation, I need one clarification for our record. A pause sharp enough to cut glass. Who exactly did you fire? No one answered. Finally, the CFO croaked. We let go of a mess. Malik, for an expense issue. A deadly pause. I see, we'll proceed accordingly. Click. Silence swallowed the room, then a new email pinged from Sarah. Subject, compliance closure, final receipts body. Attached are all federally authorized receipts from my final audit cycle. For any future compliance matters in Region 4, please contact my firm. Attached was a PDF, title, Zoom Termination Transcript 11:08 a.m., PSD yellow highlight, you are terminated for fraud. Caleb Benton timestamp, during federally scheduled on-site audit. Watermarked in time. Synced by an independent transcription service. Undeniable, permanent, their fatal error notarized. The board convened at 3:00 p.m., cameras flickering on one by one. They looked exhausted, sick. Then Kayla joined. No makeup, no confidence. Just someone staring down the crater she'd made. The CFO leaned into frame. She fired the only person who could have saved us. No one disagreed. And then, the final blow, a board member quietly asked, so who, exactly, promoted her?